1, 2, go. Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call obey, to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The name of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and mind, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity. Please, let's be seated. So now we start with the introduction. First, I want to specially introduce the Chief Executive and the Executive Director of this institute, our friend, Dr. Atonda. Let us put our hands together for him. Next is to specially welcome also the Chairman of the RRPC, Dr. Magu. Let us put our hands together for him. And we welcome our Professor Ogo Idili to our list. And next, Dr. Udi Uju. Let us put our hands together for him. Now, all members of Dr. Why do I want to fail this exam? And that happens to be my head of department. So someone should please supply the answer. I've been dealing with so many Babalolas recently. So immediately that name came, Babalola, I started looking. Please help me welcome the head of department, Citrus and Now, on that note, I want to specially welcome every other member of IMC here seated. Thank God our IMC is expanding. The latest entrant, Dr. Idowu, let us put our hands together for that. I think with time, when some things shift in the system, there should be a letter from the admin so that we will understand the dynamics of change. So who is the other member of IMC that I've not recognized? I think we have paid the dues. Now we're at our level. Other members here present, welcome. And this is the Halemon. So on that note, we now move on to the other thing that we have on the program today. And the first is the opening remark and introduction by the Director and Chief Executive of NIHORT, Dr. Atonda. Let us put our hands together for him. You are welcome, sir.
I can sing you up.
Okay.
Yeah?
Anywhere. But maybe you come here because of the...
Okay, because of the...
Link it as a web.
You permit me to stand on the existing protocol because I will give the honor the professor in the institute, Dr. Idili, Dr. Joe, Dr. Ido, Dr. Babalola, all the IMC administration, all the head of programs, all the head of departments, my colleagues, scientists, say good morning. Yes, I think we are sorry for us to start with because I think I've been carried along in fixing these days. When the head of the program met me some 2-3 weeks ago regarding this program, I shares at 70% effort of fixing it today, and maybe he's taking the 30%. But the 30% for him is not be something you're going to crucify him for. He gave me two options that day. I should choose either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. And since I have the liberty, I was very sure yesterday is not going to be free. So I decided to choose today. It's only when I now met Igwe and some other colleagues this morning were telling me, oh, your rice or your day. So I didn't know today used to be rice day for UI. I was told no matter what, you guys have always fixed at 17th of November for the convocation of the PhD activities. And fortunately or otherwise, our comrade, the president of my great association, is also convocating today. So we are going to join them in the evening to eat rice. I hope he has started preparing the rice, even though rice is very expensive now. I think we was telling me 42,000 naira this morning. I said, thank God I don't buy rice often. So sorry for fixing it for today, but notwithstanding, I think we can go ahead and do our work because it's sensitization on what we have to achieve. Firstly, I think uh, when we are at the gym bar, we're doing a lot of things. And I thought we had the best until after 2-3 weeks, like I do for the progressives, organized and motivated with them. We visited ITA. So and then we paid some of you by So when I got to their gym bank, I now realized we don't have anything there. Another 2 months after, we visited Nagra by the same set of people. I think Doctors is among the facilitators. So we went to Nagra again. I saw their gym bank. One of my colleagues quickly told me, she told me, okay, I think it can be just only we don't have power supply and we don't have anything. That what we have in NIHORT is even better than what they have at Nagra. The only place that is better than us here in Ibadan is only ITA. So since then we'll be working on the cloud to get our things together. So the last rope that broke the camel back was memo Dr. Akinfaswe, I think it's on his way from Akure, sent to me about 8 weeks ago. You know, there's some memo you're going to see, you'll not be able to sleep. I think Dr. Obama should be able to share that experience with me. I don't know. I got the memo that billions of seeds stored in the gym bag have been eaten by rats. So I started wondering, we have billions in NIHORT. So, you know, when you want to scare somebody, because it was scaring, so I also took my pen and I wrote 1 or 2 pages of my memo to him back. It just explained this, explained that. I remember we wrote it is what you wrote to me and tried to reply. You are indicting me that you did some work and you kept a lot of seed in the gym bank, and invariably rats are eating them, and it's going to cost the institute several millions of naira. That's what you use. I said, okay, when do you put it there? Who will receive it from you? What are the documentation? You know, when we pay, I've seen one lapses in all of us, including me. We don't like officiating things. We like personalizing it. So I said, who was aware when you are submitting it? Do you give it to the head of the program? I asked more than 15 questions. You know, guys, there might be no query the day you query for it's memo. You send me a memo, I'm sending it back to you. So he has to come around, do some lobbying. I said, no, I'm not intimidating you. It's just what you did. You are documenting it, so let me also document it. So at the end of the day, we came to the same conclusion that most of the things are done on individual basis, on personalized level. So it took the sick. There was an exigency when there was a committee, sick and Sydney committee was set up. The institute released some money and they got some seed from all our outstations. So in order to make some commercial activities out of it was given to Opticonsult. So Opticonsult, in other words, took the whole seed. Since they cannot sell the whole thing at the time, they took it to Genebank. And it was there in Genebank, live value. And luckily, the rat saw a lot of food. And then they started using it. Please, can you get another paper that just came in now? So they started using it. The rats were using it and all these things. So eventually, that necessitated the talk from him. So it was then, after my first visit to the Genebank, and we need to give you the background where this thing is very essential because it's going to affect a lot of things positively. We may not see it as positive, but it's the crusade we are trying to bring up. Let's standardize the whole process. Let's institutionalize the whole process. Let's officiate it rather than doing it personally. So I went there. I carried out my own level of technical assessment. I said, okay, even where those rights are assisting, there are certain things we can do without even contacting the institution if the passion is there. And we try to do that and it stopped the rat. And luckily, we have some power of electricity now. So the Genebank is coming to stay, which we need to acknowledge the previous administration. They've done a lot of work in that. So, and super to that, the head of the program has also been active. They have been bringing a lot of ideas where this will be this, what that will be that. Along the line, one of their colleagues also was sent abroad to go and study how to manage the Genebank and its administration. So I said, okay, let's conceptualize the whole thing. Let's bring them together and form a common front. How we can get this thing done. Because as we speak now, if they have us, all the seed of variety that have been released in NIHORT, I doubt if we are going to get it in that Genebank. It's not possible. I will not mention it. I was reading into one of the MOU by our researcher here with one sponsor or donor, grand donor, and he said it there that the city has is keeping it in Nigeria. So I just, so looking to myself, look, if I am that donor, I will not give that grant because you are supposed to have that in your institute and you don't have. But it's because they are not interested in that. They are interested in getting some data we don't know. That's why they release the grant. Because if you tell me in your house, you don't have table and chair, and I ask you to write me a report, so how do you want to write the report? The researcher said yes, it has some good varieties of good materials or promising material, but he kept it in Nagra, and the grant was still released. So he's going to pay Nagra when you're in that, and then you are signing agreement with NIHORT. So all those things comes together. We're not trying to reposition our Genebank. It's not that it's not working, but we need to take it to the next stage so that it can be more competitive, so that they can take us more serious. Because the Genebank is just the epitome of why NIOS is a system. If you can see our even the mandate is genetic improvement. And when you are talking of genetic, why do you keep it? Free inside my dining room? I don't think so. Which most of us are doing now. That's what we're doing. Like Dr. Adetula said, seed me, leader seed me, free to know. And we're also inconveniencing ourselves because we are doing it on personal level. So please, let's institutionalize this. And this cannot be done alone. That is why I agree with the young man, the head of the GRU, that let's come around, sensitize ourselves that every material we have in our hand is not issue of breeder now or geneticists. No, it is issue of all of us. All our jump plans, all our activities that we have to do that will lead to agronomy, that will lead to pharmacists and look to development. Let's keep them where they're supposed to be. And that is putting a strong responsibility on those people that are going to be settling that duties. The issue of trust and confidence. There's no trust in the system. There's no confidence in the system. And we all know where there's no trust because we are personalizing the whole thing. I don't know where I will not come to NIHORT and say, okay, the tomato brought to Nigeria is 78 or 81. Where are these? And I cannot provide it. So please, let's look at that. And as things are coming from the program, the unit, by extension to the program and to the department. Please let's cooperate with them. Let's give them all the support that is needed. I and my IMC, by the grace of God, we're going to give them all the necessary support. We are trying to plead to ourselves. I don't want us to take it official and start writing memo and letter to us. Please, let us do it voluntarily. It is for our own good. Whereby I'm looking at a stage whereby somebody in any country can go to NIHORT website, go around, just like Dr. Smith said it, you see hurry of what we have, and then you can tell, okay, I can get this from NIHORT, I can get this from NIHORT, I can get it from NIHORT. And the public relations units have been doing a lot of work now because I'm getting calls now. I wouldn't have, honestly, because I know we don't have that background, but we can rush and do it. Honestly, I so much trust in the agility, the resourcefulness, and hardworking status of the NIHORT police. Honestly, it's fantastic. We can get it up. But I don't like miracles because I don't go to church and mosque. Yes, it's somebody that goes to churches that like miracle. I know we can perform miracle in NIHORT because I didn't know until when we had 3 boarded citrus on that day. I never knew. And the minister of the day, when we talked 4 days ago, say, your 3 borders in my backyard. I mean, okay, for me, see that now. I'm speaking in Hausa. So, and when Honorable Neil Dangudi was around yesterday, he said, look, I want to collect my 3 borded citrus. And I don't know we have it. So, deep inside my mind, I said, now I can perform miracle. But I don't like miracle. Let's work it reality empirically as a scientist. That's why I want. If they say has to go and generate 100 kg of citrus now, 100 kg of cotton, I know Dr. Masuru can get it for me, but I want to see the process. How we arrive at that. I don't want to see maybe a giraffe, and will get the answer. The highlight of what we're going to see today of genetic resources operations, what they do in their activities, and we're all going to key into that, which is going to give us the confidence what to do, how to go with them, and how to relate with them. Also, they are going to tell us the state of NIHORT Genebank. About 3 or 4 days ago, on Monday, their head was sending one picture today where most of their Genebank was frozen. And he told me it's at -10 or -11. They said they are -10 or -11. So they are going to tell us the state of the NIHORT Genebank. Also, they will go ahead and tell us what is the global protocols, standard guidelines, so that we have a benchmark, we have a measure of how to measure ourselves. Even if we are not there, we can there. Then what are the gem plants rights and protocols to go about it? So I don't know, maybe they have inventory of genetic resources. They are going to talk about that too. It may not be today, but it's going to be all along what we're going to be doing. Then how to register genetic registration in NIHORT Genebank. What we're saying is that all your seeds, all your germ plants that you have, you can also go and log it with them, register it with them, and let them catalog. Like I was telling Dr. Chris, it's not yet the other time. I said most of the material you brought to me now, this code, is it for NIHORT or for Chris or for Atoda or for who? It has to be named in a way that will NIHORT to be part of it, so that it can have a bearing when you are very locally to this one. So also how they collect their germ plants, the collection, the acquisition. I think we are aware of that. We know its protocol, and as a scientist, but notwithstanding, we need to standardize it so that all of us can be on the same stage. And accession to how you can access the germ plants after you've deposited it or drop it or we've registered it NIHORT. They are going to do that for us. And then the feedback mechanisms, how they perform it, just to strengthen the system and institutionalize it. That's what we're trying to do. I want to appeal to us. We can make sanity out of the insane environment we find ourselves. I will cite an example now. I don't know, maybe we are using jet, but this could be never. Despite that we don't have power supply in Nigeria, we're able to manage ourselves and get what we want. It is always like that. It's just like when we are mentioning, sorry, I don't go. Everybody, my mom, she's a salary, she was a salary learner. She always complain I don't have money. But I didn't get. Even though she don't eat meat, But I find out when a lady there, she was a nurse officer, so she knows the essence of taking good balance diet. But one has been complaining by this phone so we get things done. So out of the insane environment, we can still get sanity. We don't say Nigeria is not, we can get this done. And lastly, we also focus where we can have impact. Let reform area we can have impact. Area that will make meaningful progress to the institute. Why I said this, I was told a story during I don't know how far it's true, it was years I was telling you uh, during COVID-19, COVID era, they called NIHORT and they said, can we get seed of this? And once or more, they was speaking, I was actually that they are telling him 2 kg, 1 kg. Say, 1 kg or 100 kg or 1,000 kg. So I think because the gym bank is not working, if the gym bank is working, you can have more than 1,000 kg of any seed there. And we're going to go to that and to get that. So on this note, I'm welcoming you to this, and I implore you to give all the necessary support either today, tomorrow, or in the future to gym bank so that we can get into the level we are going. Thank you very much.
With the opening remark from the executive director, it's obvious we are on course as we continue the remaining part of this program. It is said that when a lion moves in the jungle, it gets to a time when it stops and looks back. The lion is not looking back out of fear. After all, the lion is the king of the jungle. But there is always a time to reevaluate whatever we are doing in life, so that we'll see where we are getting it from. I want to call on Dr. Wankuma for just a very short remark concerning what we are doing today. So please let us also put our hands together for you.
The Executive Director, members of IFC here present, HOPs, HODs, HOUs, and heads of station. I think since streaming live, you are all welcome to this all important meeting. Please permit me if my words will flow. Yesterday, I left the hospital, got to my hand to 5. When I got home, I saw Mr. Wope's call. He said I was going to make a presentation this morning. I said, no, since it's suicide, no problem. Meanwhile, I was done. This morning, on arrival at the office, a bad news is what I had. And that was information with my principal executive officer to Mr. Woodley. So that's just taught me to shred. Ordinarily, I would have walked into the AD, say, AD, this is my family. I'll not be able to start. But then it's a challenge. So, once again, I welcome all of you to this seminar, a sensitization seminar on gene bank operation. Gene bank is just like a bell repository that preserves, conserves potentially useful species of genetic materials, e.g., the seeds, plant tissues, etc. And that purpose is to maintain genetic diversity. Genebank is of two types. And we know that they all have their advantages and disadvantages. The two types, one is in vitro and the other one is field. I understand, I know that you understand what I mean by field. Field for tree crops and seeds for the short, the annuals, let me put it that way. And we know that this is known to know what a country is up to. G2, food and nutrition security has direct bearing with the quality of genetic diversity that we have. Coming back to NIHORT, what is the place of the old Project 6 and Project 9? Vis-a-vis maintenance of the Genebank. What does it look like in the early 80s and 90s? Because I was one of the beneficiaries. From just like any other colleague, from anywhere in Nigeria, you'll be directed to NIHORT to get what you want as far as seed and seedlings are concerned. The seed with which I did my master's just came here. In less than 10 minutes I had, and I left. So also it can be. In the 2020s or late 90s and 2020s, I don't know how it was being managed. But I know that one of the constraints or challenges is funding. But there was a particular year, Dr. Kentian and Jerry witnessed precisely 2002. There was no fund release. And that's to be stood in the system. If there's no fund release, BNP, NEPA, and IBADC, well, I'm sure I'm not wrong if I say never, because it's never expect power always. That has it to on our Genebank. Thanks to Project 6 and Project 9, where we rest our hopes that in no time we'll begin to sing a new song. All of a sudden, the team collapsed again. So that we lost virtually everything that was there in Genebank. But then, we can't continue to live in the past. The question now is, what is the situation now? Very big thanks to the ED because of the passion that he has. Somebody was sent to go and receive some information on Genebank management. Like he just said a while ago. But down here, how do we move on? That is the big question that is left each and every one of us, so that the old glory will come back to NIHORT. I know that in a couple of minutes, they'll be telling us how far they have gone or they used to go as far as managing the Genebank, so that the preservation of conservation process will be sustained. I implore every one of us here to please pay right attention to what Mr. Owen has in store for us. Thank you very much. And,
When I came in this morning, the very first information I got was about the demise of Mr. Goody. And when we started this program, I didn't want to talk about it because I wasn't sure if the executive director had been informed, because there are protocols in everything. But now that the news has been broken, it is important we do what we need to do, and that is just observe a minute silence for him as we continue to pray for the repose of his soul. Please let us rise. May his soul rest in peace. Please let's be seated. There is a part of scripture that says, "Show us, Lord, the shortness of life, that we may gain wisdom of heart." And then he asks, what is man that God keeps him in man? Mortal man that God cares for him. Today you are there, tomorrow you vanish like a vapor. And that is the reality of human life. Who knows who is next? Well, we pray that God sustains our life so that we stay long enough to reap the fruits of our labor. But give and take, all decision lies in his hands. So we pray that God consoles his family and that God grants him eternal rest. And for those of us who are still left in the race, may God give us grace to live holy and fruitful lives, because at the end of the day, that's really what matters. So we want to once more appreciate the RRPC chairman for that short remark. And on this note, we move into the real reason why we are here, and that is the sensitization on the NIHORT Genebank operations under a centralized system. So I want to invite the big masquerade of today. Yes, you're a big masquerade today. Mr. Otetua Okwe, the head of GRU unit. Please let us put our hands together for him, as he tells us the love story behind germplasm conservation.
Good morning, good afternoon. My executive director, good afternoon, the IMC sitting here, all my senior colleagues, fellow scientists, support staff here present. I must say that I'm really honored to be here this morning to talk to us about this effort. And I'm even more happy that this thing we're here to talk about is something that the Institute feels very strongly about. This is evidence from the way the Executive Director himself has spoken, the Chairman of the RRPC has spoken, and I'm sure the views that they expressed are the views that everyone who is aware of this expresses. Thank you. I understand at this point that we have run very late, and what I will be doing is collapse as much as I can the presentation so that we give some reasonable time for interaction, which is one of the main purposes of this meeting. As the my senior colleague, Dr. Okafo, has said, we're here to discuss the NIHORT Genebank operations under a centralized germplasm conservation and management framework. We have here a chart, a flow chart, that summarizes our genetic resources operations in the Institute. As I said, I'll be collapsing the presentation, and I would implore us to forgive me if I fall short of any expectation in the presentation, maybe by way of coordination. Please forgive me. And we'll be willing to make any clarifications that I miss. Here, on this chart, we've tried to make it quite explanatory. We've numbered activities, and we've used arrows to show flows, workflows between the activities. Now, the activities here, we'll talk about them in detail, and I may need to be going back and forth to this flow chart. Now, genetic resources, as we've said, are activities that are related to preservation of genetic diversity for our crop research across all disciplines. Genetic resources don't just happen. Genetic resources are found either in nature or by human creation from nature. Now, you access genetic resources mainly by collecting them from where they are found, on farms, other repositories that have had them before, and all that. Now, the first is collections, donations. Now, when they come from foreign locations, we also call them collections, but they are foreign acquisitions. And in such cases, they have to pass through quarantine. Please, I'm sorry. Thank you. Genetic resources from foreign. Thank you. From foreign sources. Genetic resources from foreign sources need to pass through quarantine procedures, and that is because the country has made arrangements in place to protect us from the effects of pests, pathogens, and diseases that may not have been with us and that are possibly or potentially able to move with germplasm. So that process of quarantine scrutiny protects us against such. Now, when we receive this germplasm, we may not have them in quantities that are sufficient. We may not have them in viability or quality levels that are sufficient for us. We put them through regeneration or multiplication. And only then, when we arrive at the quality, quantity, and background state that we need them, do we register them into the Genebank system. That is so that we don't register a material that we would turn about and then we end up not having. This registration step is what creates the documentation and information system of the genetic resources framework. It is from the registration that you know what the materials are, how useful they are, and how you will go ahead handling them throughout the process. When they enter into the system, you have the opportunity to characterize them immediately, but also you need to be sure that you are keeping them very well. So you go ahead and proceed with conserving them. Conserving them requires you to process them through certain protocols, depending on what kind of materials they are. Are they going to be live materials? Are they seed? Are they seeds that can be stored under certain conditions, cold storage, or whatever? This is conditioning. You pack them according to those protocols, you label, and then you place them where they are to be conserved, which could be in ex situ or in situ. Ex situ refers to those locations that are out of the growth environment of that plant or that crop. In the gene bank, in the cold storage, in cryopreservation, in at room temperature, or however, you're keeping the propagules out of their growth cycle. In situ refers to those ones that you maintain them in their life forms, on the fields, orchards, and for those ones particularly that cannot be kept as seed. Now, when you're conserving these plants, they are exposed to several situations. You need to be monitoring them to make sure that they are fine. Monitoring is a routine process. Check the viability for seeds. You check their health status. For those ones on the field, you need to check their health status from time to time. How are they faring agronomically? Are they at any risk of dying or being lost due to any conditions? And if you find them wanting, you have to take steps to regenerate. And then that brings you back to conditioning them and putting them back in storage. Now, you have these materials, taking care of them. What are they? How do you stand to gain from them? That is where characterization, evaluation, and pre-breeding processes on the materials comes in. That is the only thing that allows us to be able to put to use in the best possible, potentially beneficial manner those materials. And it is from there that the core breeding pipelines actually fetch these materials that are relevant to the purposes and objectives of their breeding programs and put them to use. This could be within the institute primarily because our own genetic resources framework here is targeted at fulfilling our own institutional research mandate, which is crop improvement for horticultural species. It is only in the bid to further food security for humanity, that we are also open to sharing and distributing genetic resources under our conservation facilities to external people, external parties for the same purposes. And those are actually scrutinized. They are using them exactly for what they are using them. Now, there are protocols and standards regarding genetic resources operations. Basically, global protocols apply across the board for all signatories to those protocols. We've had these two that are relevant to us. The ITP-GRFA here, which is also just the treaty, and then we have the CBD. The CBD actually applies to animal and plant genetic resources, but we get the imports for our own plant genetic resources from there. We also have this ITP-GRFA specifically for plant genetic resources used for food and agriculture. So it is specific to us. This very treaty, the treaty has been in force, or rather in use across the globe for over 20 years. And Nigeria was a party to the formation, but we never ratified that treaty. It is only a few months ago that Mr. President found it worthy to ratify it now Nigeria is a signatory to that treaty, meaning we are fully involved and we have the obligation to use those protocols to our benefit and to ensure standards are followed. These protocols are actually made to benefit people who are signatories to them. Actually, we've outlined the benefits that accrue to parties under the treaty. Access to genetic resources in the multilateral system, MLS. The multilateral system is what gives parties common ground to share and deal with genetic resources of certain species. Exchange of information between parties is possible. Access to technology you don't have, you can easily access it. Capacity building, training across board. Now, we have been beneficiaries of these outlined benefits here. We may not have been benefactors, but we have been beneficiaries. And permit me at this point to outline the role that IIT has played over the years in training our staff, putting us through one or two things on how to go about genetic resources. That is part of the treaty's benefits. Sharing of monetary and other benefits arising from commercialization is one of them. We may come to that details later. I also want to acknowledge the partnership we've enjoyed with NAGRA, who is the focal national point for genetic resources in the country. We now talk about the state of the NIHORT Genebank. We've spoken about how we go about doing the operations. Now, the NIHORT Genebank, I would like to state here that the NIHORT Genebank is not necessarily a particular location, a room, or an equipment where we keep seeds. No. The NIHORT Genebank is actually a whole complement of facilities, equipment, fields, and activities that the Institute deploys to carry out our genetic conservation and management activities. The orchards where we have our different varieties of tree crops planted are part of the Genebank. Those growth rooms where in vitro plants are kept are part of the Genebank. They may not have been designated as such, but those are part of it. Now, what I have listed here and tabulated, we're actually just zeroing in on those things that are very obvious to us, all stated here. The Genebank currently is in possession of this listed equipment here. We have the seed room, actually a facility, for short-term conservation of active collections, that is ex situ, as I explained before. The conditions there are as listed. The cold room is for medium to long-term conservation. Under proper management and maintenance, you could keep seeds there that will last you for up to 6 years without you touching them to regenerate, and you will be fine with them. Those are the conditions of storage there. Minus 15 degrees, plus or minus. We have an airlock space that surrounds that cold room. We have chest freezers, as shown. We have refrigerator freezers, as shown. These facilities, we must acknowledge that they are only useful if they are properly maintained, and most importantly, if there is power to power them. We may have had issues with power, but recently we've had a lot of progress in the past few months. And as the ED had mentioned before, we are achieving sub-zero temperatures in the cold room now convenient. Now, this is about germplasm collection and acquisition. I had spoken to that when I was going over the flow chart. Now, about this, under a centralized framework, it is important to do it in a way that serves our purposes. We are not new. None of our scientists here is new to genetic resources collection. We collect, but the thing now that we're trying to look at is how we collect, how we plan the collection, how we go ahead using the materials. We must put ourselves together and work together to achieve that. Now, it is the first step of the whole cycle, as I said. We must conduct critical analysis of what we have and the gaps before embarking on it, because it is expensive. As I mentioned before, it's done by collecting, going to the field to collect. It can be done by asking people who have the materials that we want to give us. That is targeted acquisition, solicited acquisition. Either way, we must do it properly. We have procedures in place, and with the management interest in getting this thing done, within the next few weeks, I believe that everything will be done to properly publish the guidelines, documents that would guide us as an institute, a scientific institute. And these will be worked on properly and published locally within us in due course. Genetic germplasm registration, as I mentioned, is you do before you ensure that the materials are in your genetic resources management system. Materials that are newly acquired or donated or submitted must be duly registered according to the standards that have been met, as listed there. Now, the required information is useful because that is what makes the germplasm useful. If you don't have passport data or any other relevant information, it is difficult to make use of genetic resources. So, it is one of the things that is most important. Now, here in registration to the issue of rights to germplasm comes in. What happens to the germplasm when it is given to the gene bank? What happens to them? Are you losing the germplasm? Are you losing your access to it or your rights to it? No, you are not. Because the gene bank operates, as we said, under protocols that are designed to protect and benefit users of germplasm. That registration leads to documentation. Explained that on the chart before. And here, I just want to show what the Institute currently has been able to document, to register and document in our genetic resources system. You see that across 17 mandate crops, we have over 800 accessions registered officially with NIHORT Genebank accession codes. Now, that number might sound a lot, but going by what the Institute has, it is a very minute number. That number you see there, by the time the Institute goes ahead to do what we need to do, I can assure you that within a few years, that number can go to times 20. And it is very, very possible. I spoke about sharing and distribution. Sharing and distribution is another important aspect of genetic resources operations. And as I said, because we're the unit, the gene bank, is existing because of the institute. It means that sharing and distribution must be prioritized within. Obviously, we see that if you're giving or bringing your materials to be registered into the gene bank, you are the one that first stands to benefit from it before it goes to any. You are priority. And it doesn't mean you did not bring something to the gene bank and then you have nothing to gain there. Materials there are accessible to every bona fide scientist or program or domain of the institute that needs it for the approved legal research that we do. Now, here, I've listed some statistics of distribution that we had in the Genebank over the past few years. It is quite small, it might seem big, but it is small because you can only give what you have. You see here that the crops listed on this, you can actually count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 crops. 7 crops. And that is what is in the record. NIHORT has the largest mandate for crop improvement research. Within us here, we have programs, fruits program, citrus program, spices, farming systems, vegetables. But the crops you see here are all vegetables. What tells us is we are actually lagging very far behind in terms of genetic resources conservation and use, even amongst ourselves. We know that other programs have the mandate to conserve germplasm in fields that they manage, especially the live gene banks. But this has to be centralized to give the full benefit. And that is what the decentralization effort is going to be doing. We mentioned rights to germplasm. We must understand that most times we sensationalize some issues, and sometimes we may not necessarily be correct when we do that. When you are having reservations about handing over germplasm for maybe fear of losing your rights to them, you may not always be right. Through this process, we are going to be educating ourselves. The management is already looking at approving the activities that will include training for our scientists within in phases about most of these protocols and processes that we're talking about. And we'll get to know more about them. Why we put this slide here is because we in the GRU, we sat down and we looked at the issues that we've been having regarding rights to germplasm. But one key thing stood out. Breeders' rights. Now, before you claim total rights to any germplasm, it must be official. I mean, the law has provided for that. The Plant Variety Protection Act, which was actually recently signed, takes care of that. And the criteria we've listed here are the things that apply to the PVP. This is not difficult, and the process of germplasm centralization in the Institute is actually going to go very far and see how we're going to help ourselves to achieve some of this eagerness to lay claims to germplasm that we feel we should have rights about in the areas that are relevant. We're going to make sure we get them, and in those areas that we do not need to lay claim, we'll clearly know about that as we go. Now, talking about access to germplasm in the NIHORT Genebank, I showed us a slide of sharing and distribution. Those statistics came from across the country, a few from across the world, global, most from within. There are processes to accessing the germplasm. You request, there are request forms, and the requests are processed, and you are attended to. We're going through the process make some of these processes more domicile, make ourselves more aware of most of these protocols. Now, another thing there is feedback from germplasm operations and utilization activities. These activities enrich the genetic resources cycle. If you go through one cycle of germplasm use, you will never come back to that point in the same state. You will have gained some feedback that enriches the use of that germplasm. Breeders will have evaluated, they will have found out some few things that were not known before. Now, this feedback mechanism cannot be in place if we don't have a centralized system. A centralized system that is going to acknowledge where whatever feedback is coming from, how it is being used, how it is being stored. And indeed, the institute management has this centralized germplasm framework as a tool for planning investment in research. Because there are ways that the management can harvest data from the system that tells management exactly which areas are lacking in funding in terms of crop improvement and varietal development. Now, as I mentioned, I tried to collapse this presentation, and permit me to bring it to an end at this point. I want to appreciate the Executive Director, CEO, Dr. Otonda. I want to appreciate the RRB Chairman, IMC, senior colleagues, scientists, and also all staff here for giving me time. Thank you.
Please let us appreciate Mr. Well, if asked, why do we conserve? The answer is as simple as this. We conserve in order to conserve what needs to be conserved. And that's a beautiful reason to conserve anything. If there is no need for conservation, you will not conserve it. As Mr. West stood here to make his presentation, my mind actually went back to the headship of that unit over the years, from Dr. Adetula to Dr. Itoye to Dr. Love Itoye, and now him. Well, things can only get better, which again emphasizes the need for rotational headship. And the truth is that when you don't leave, you don't even know the potentials of people behind you. And that's why I'm one of the advocates of rotational headship. Once it is time, once your tenure is over, please take a break and let somebody else take over. Because there is nothing anyone is doing that somebody else cannot do. It is only God that is indispensable. Now we have come to this section of the program, and that has to do with questions. Now, when you look at the shape of the head of a human being, the shape of everybody's head is actually a question mark. Take a dorsal view of your head and see the shape. You will know it is a question mark. Everybody's head, your head and your neck, the shape is a question mark. Just check it and see. And that's one of the reasons human beings will always ask questions. Now, you ask, when we leave here, just check the shape of your head with your neck, and you see it is a question mark. Everybody's head and neck has that shape. Maybe it is the shape of our head and neck that brought about that symbol. It's a question mark. And so human beings will always ask questions. Now, that is the section we are going into now. You ask somebody the full meaning of NEPA, he can tell you it's National Establishment for National Establishment for Power or whatever. And then you now move on to another one. They ask you what is GRA. You say GRA is government establishment for public annoyance. It is still never. Whatever is the case, we are going into the next session where you are free to ask any question as it relates to this presentation. I'm sure we have the experts to deal with it. And at this point, I want to invite Dr. Itoye to anchor the question and answer session of today's event. Let us put our hands together for her.
Good afternoon. Permit me to stand on the existing protocol, ED, the INC, the RIPC, their colleagues. Good afternoon. So we are at the story platform, and we have some pre-answered questions there. I would like to start from the presentation that the HOU had given. If we have any probing question, perhaps we can raise our hands up, but if not, then we'll go through these pre-answered, frequently asked questions. We may touch your question or we may not. Is that okay? Can we go by our own asking our questions, or we go through these questions?
The anchor to the answers. You know, I'm always the issue you started for the brilliant presentation. I must say that I've actually given a lot of and I want to start by saying that when you don't know what something stands for, then it becomes a problem. And all the time, but for today, we talk about Genebank, and you say it's not necessarily a place. But since I came to NIHORT, I've always known a place will be the Genebank. Right? That is that place. So what we're saying now for that definition is that we have to redefine that place. And if you don't redefine that place, then we're going to have the same problem. We're going to have this. So maybe you bring it up and let this be properly defined. Because I look at your question, and that's also Dr. is question mark. So I have just this idea. Let me just come up. Now, sometimes I can't really collect. There was a program, I call it Farmer Back to Farm. And some of my colleagues will remember it. And we brought in some experts from outside the country. And I remember that one of the problems that actually came to school to solve was the issue of our narrow rooftop base. And they think it's something like a seed or whatever. Dr. Gadio was there at that time, and they talk about the swing or whatever. I don't know that. Something like that. It was some of these items. How does it fit into this Genebank? I want to be taught. Yes. Yes. In your that model, although that model is not clear, but I want you to make some sense of it. Maybe you should have it when you want to represent us. Now, there is something you talked about registration, which is about step 6, if I got it right. Step one of the steps, but not in the early part of the steps. Oh, I saw registration somewhere. 60. Yeah. 6. Yeah.
Conservation.
Yeah.
No, registration.
60. Yeah. Maybe my glasses here and 60. 60, yeah. 60. generation.
Oh.
Oh,
Generation. 4 years registration.
okay. And so it's not so clear. I'm so sorry. So no problem. It's not your fault. But why do I bring that one in? The church said that if I got it right, if you bring the material to the Genebank, to the what is it? If you have this resource material, you don't do anything, you don't have anything to do with until it is registered. I mean, if I got it right. Now, why am I asking? Sometimes 1995, 1994, thereabout, there was a project in NIHORT now National Agricultural Research. And any time we went out at that time, we used to collect a lot of materials. I remember my team and I we collected a lot of okra varieties. Dajokolowo, Iwokala, Oluju, don't know. We met them. And we took them to the seed room. And after that, we did anything. What right do we have? What right? What's right? And we have the right to ask for those materials and say what have we done about it. Because we made it as a policy. Anytime we go out at that time, we used to collect, either exhibition, we collect new materials here and we put it in your hands. So, I think, sorry, these are the things I have. Yes, lastly, your presentation talk about, I guess maybe you want to use facilities. You're talking about equipment. And you say seed room. Say, what does seed room could become an equipment? Good room. Maybe you want to talk about facilities. But honestly, that's those are my suggestions. Thank you.
Dr. Olufumi.
And my question, now we people are signed. What do you expect from us? What do you expect from us? Now, some kind of what should we bring to you?
Okay, that's okay, that's good.
In vegetable, we have some indigenous vegetable crops that are dispersed by wind parts on following season. Is it possible for the gene bank to preserve these materials for us? Then I need you to shed more light on in situ conservation, because some of these materials are propagated from season to season so that we don't lose them. So how can the gene bank be of help to vegetable to have a good in situ conservation method?
Thank you. Dr. Olufumi.
Please, I just need you to shed light on this Genebank or GRE. Then secondly, I want to find out, is there a way by which you are harmonizing different materials that come in? For example, I remember there was a time there were, is it called accessions or something? Then they gave it different names, maybe by virtue of where it came from. FST, which was farming systems, FSD1, FSD2. Yeah. So, is there a way you would streamline and harmonize so that we don't have things that are just in bits and pieces like that? Something that comes under one name. Like you're looking at this particular session or you're looking at this particular variety, NIHORT quiz. I know we have some of them in place, but to be able to merge what comes in from different segments, different research programs as an entity that we can lay our hands on to say that this
Set of questions before we take on this.
Thank you very much. Comments. Let me start from the first. We are going to this sort now. And I think there's another one, but I'm sure it's basically that stuff. Now, genetic resources actually, when you do it well, you have the opportunity to identify different rootstocks from the materials you have. For you mentioned, I think the rootstock you're talking about here was for citrus. Instead, embryonic can be used as a rootstock. Polyembryo, attention to it. And that is the simple reason why if attention is paid to them, they will be recognized as management allows us to do that. You also spoke about registration. It was actually 4. It's actually 4 that I'm sorry about the visibility. The registration. I did not actually say you don't do anything with them until you register. You do with them, you regenerate, you multiply. That is if they don't meet the criteria for quantity and quality. But if you receive germplasm grams and you have 200 grams and the seeds after cleaning are clean, no pests, and you go ahead and register them. And then you assign the gene bank accession number. That registration is what assigns that accession number. You cannot do that if you don't have a sustainable material. You will have to go through that process of regeneration and standardizing it before you register it. To lead that activity. The gene bank staff must not be on that team, but lead the activity. There must be pre-expedition planning. Or, you have to notify so that it is made, plans are made for it to receive and to utilize the materials as they come in. But then we also have out of schedule collection. Travel is expensive. So if you go on travel and you find germplasm you collect, that's very fine. When you bring that, it is actually out of schedule. And it is now the gene bank that would work on fitting that into its activity and getting it done. But as someone who collected germplasm and brought it to the gene bank, within here, within such a system as we are, you have the right to follow up and ask what the status is. Dr. Olufimi asked about what we expect from researchers. We researchers experiments. We expect 2 things. Before expecting something from experiments, we expect that the institute has a good knowledge of what genetic resources we have in the institute. First, that's the first thing we need. We don't even expect, we need it. The institute needs it. We've started that process already, as directed by the executive director and management. The germplasm inventory, we started already. A couple of programs and units have started with us working on it. We had sent out correspondence to that effect. And even though we've not established any deadline for it, I think with the way we're going, I'm sure we'll need to speed up and get it done. That's the first thing. We need to know what we have, centralize the information, know what is where and all that. And then the next thing now will be how to develop a mechanism where, as a researcher, I spoke about feedback mechanism. That is where your question goes. As you use germplasm, your feedback, what you found, goes into the system. If we don't know what you're feeding back on, how do we take note of it? If we don't know the tomato variety that you planted, how do we use that information of you telling us that it is high yielding? I mean, it makes little use if we don't know it. So the two things go hand in hand. Dr. Agidaido asked about wind dispersal in the vegetable that makes it necessary to propagate it by vegetative means. Am I correct, ma'am? I don't know. Just by the way, would that be Ebolo? Okay. This is a plant that scientists have worked on severally. Now, here, I would like to mention that this is where we also need to, this information, like what you're just saying now, is used to direct research, to see where we need to be putting our eyes. Here in Ebolo, it is a matter of seed biology studies. We have kept Ebolo seeds in GRU before, and we had them viable after 2 years. That is what nobody has reported before, but that is it. We have students in UI who have taken seeds from us and planted and used for their work. So it's a matter of seed biology, seed handling. How do you process the seeds? Moisture content, storage, and all that. Our eyes need to go into that. Now, storing vegetative parts for some vegetables, such as ebolo, might not be possible in the GRU seed room or cold room, but it could be possible in the in vitro lab, the biotechnology lab, in vitro bank. That would be the angle, we don't, obvious, but those are the areas where getting to know more about our genetic resources would enable management to say, okay, we need to be focusing towards the side to get it right, So it is actually what will be a result of this centralization process. That about season to season. Sorry. That is planting on the field. That is very, very stressful and inconveniencing. When you keep planting the same thing, sometimes you may not need to be doing any research, but for fear of losing your seed, you might be forced to plant. Now, it has a downside to genetic resources management, because as you keep planting, the genetic integrity changes. It changes. You may not be able to control, all that. So those are some of the downsides to keeping. When we explain this to management, that this issue of regenerating every year, it doesn't help us preserve. It only enhances genetic drift, which you end up losing part of the diversity without knowing it. Dr. Oyedele spoke about, asked about conservation as against preservation. In germplasm or genetic resources balance, we stick with the word conservation, actually, because it is all encompassing to conserving, or rather to preserving the genetics of that organism. It's the same thing as preservation, but in the professional parlance, we use conservation. Preservation, when you come to working, we will be talking about preserving our harvested tomato plants until we process them. But for our, work, for the genetic resources work, preservation work, we use conservation. How are we harmonizing different materials? Naming conventions. That was the second part of it. That is what the Institute has done. We've done it, we have it. And it is the reason why we have asked management to fund training activities for us in this coming year. Project 6, the former Project 6 developed a naming convention. In fact, it's a foolproof naming convention for naming our germplasm that prevents duplication and minimizes mistakes in identification as much as possible. We have that. And it is the reason why we have encouraged, if you look through the FAQs that we share, we encourage scientists are at liberty to name their materials how they want, their working material. You name them how it's convenient for you. If it's by year, by look, however. But we are encouraging scientists to avoid using the prefixes NH or NIHORT in their naming conventions so that we don't cause conflict between what the institutes has adopted as official and what scientists are handling for their own convenience. So we have that already. The naming convention for NIHORT genetic resources, session codes, has been established. And that is what we used, the germplasm I showed that we documented over 800. That is what we are using. Thank you.
Thank you, Jojo.
Okay, there's a question online. Okay, you want to read it?
Idris Bala, he said, how will you ensure that NIHORT genetic materials have accession number across board? I think you just
yes, that is what we just spoke about. I'm so sorry that this might not have been known to us, but it is going to be sorted out this year through this process that we have begun.
Thank you. Thank you, HOU. Can we give a round of applause for HOU? Yes, another round of, I can see Dr. Omaduma's hand up. Dr. Omaduma, please, can I see your hand up so that I can give us number? Yeah, I can see Dr. Oyedeji has been raising up, Dr. Alamu, Dr. Olajide Tari. Okay. In that order. I've given you a session number. Oh, Dr. Okay. Like the last baby on the session. So you came before the accession code was assigned.
Thank you very much. I think in gladness I have, I read through the FAQs, and one of your responses, the generation.
Which numbers are?
I'm coming. That's the infrastructure and the facilities that we have. So you said that the problem of regeneration will disappear in a short run with the improvement in functionality of the Genebank. So I want to appreciate the aid for that. That is once again coming up. Even though we know that we still have financial constraints. And then we don't use this bonus of the Genebank. Since I joined NIHORT, one thing is reoccurring. Unlike citrus, where you have the rough lemon and the Cleopatra and the rain, they want to go to the field, to the nursery. Citrus will always go for either the mandarin seeds or the rough lemon seeds. But when it comes to mango, you always travel to promotion. Promotion being a very, an area where you can have something that you can depend on, some custom. Why must it be so? Is it not possible for us to have that Genebank here so that at the end of the maybe fruiting season we can collect some of the seeds or what they call it, nuts, Yeah, the stones. You can collect the stones. So that anybody that comes and says, I need this, you'll be able to give. Just like I said, I just came from UI, I need seed, and I got it under 10 minutes. I went away. Then you cannot come to 9 months and say, I need this, or that of stores of number. Is it not possible to concern it? Is it not possible? I think if we have one, just like citrus, I think it will be a very big use. And ditto for some other fruit seeds and stones. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Yodeji.
Thank you. I quickly want to say this, that this is what we are doing right now. I think it's really going a long way to project NIHORT's village. Why am I saying this? We are all researchers, and in anything we do, be it thesis, be it our publications, we always make mention of source of material, like source of seed, source of material. And by the time you harvest like 10 journals, even at international level, and the source of material in that journal, maybe your cultural related journals, let me put it that way. The source of material is NIHORT in 7, then it shows NIHORT is we are working without even making any noise. You can sort of material NIHORT in this, sort of material NIHORT in that. Because when I wanted to do my PhD program, I needed a sorghum, because I wanted to crop sorghum with my tomato. What I did was to harvest some good journals to see, to a related, sorghum related journals to see, look for source of seed. And through that, I was able to identify every area that I can get the good sorghum.
That's one. Secondly, I want to tell GRU that in citrus, we are having issues with our rootstock seeds. They don't stay long. Because when we have, like now, we are in the harvesting period, we have them on the field. We can harvest as many kilograms as we want, but the unfortunate thing is that they don't stay more than 30 days. They lose viability easily. So I want to believe that with this in place, we can try and see if refrigerated or being refrigerated or being stored under an ideal situation can prolong the viability of those things. Yes, I want to give that to GRU.
Okay.
Then lastly, please, Mr. Allen, in case of unplanned collection, maybe I'm on a survey, and during the course of that survey, I saw some genetic materials that I believe it will be useful for NIHORT. If I should collect those materials, what are the information that I need to ask about those materials that will not make those materials useless when I bring it here to NIHORT? Maybe in the summary, and just tell us what we should look out for or what we should ask.
Okay.
Make this.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Alamu.
Thank you. My question okay, my question is that we all believe or we all know that weeds are abundant and they are always available and their seeds are very recalcitrant. They can stay up to 100 years in the soil. Now, I will not use the word weed again. I will not use the word plants because weeds are plants. It's only their usefulness has not been identified. And I am working and I see a particular plant which I believe will be useful or is useful, and I bring it for conservation. And when I bring it to you, you discover that it used to be called a weed. The question now is that, will you take that plant from me? Question number one. Number two, won't you consider it that it is going to contaminate the pure seeds you have in the gene bank? And thirdly, will it pass through the protocols of accepting it? Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Oladile,
Thank you. Dr. Olivia has actually touched the question that what are the expected information to accompany.
okay. We have some online questions. Should I go ahead? Okay. We have one question from Dr. Olofintoye Gombe. He said the question of what to do the GRU expect from the scientists is not well answered or elaborate. He said that question about what is expected from what GRU expects from scientists is not well answered. Idris Bala said, with due respect, what institute is doing to reactivate our gene bank at Bagauda station? Thanks. I think it's just a comment is passing. That's no, let me read it. With due respect, what institute there is no okay. What is institute doing to reactivate our gene bank at Bagauda station? Thank you. Then there is Ahud Abubakar. Okay. We have a non-functional gene bank in Bagauda station. Could it be fixed and used as part of NIHORT Genebank? Then we have an observation by HOS Kano, Dr. Chikaleke. Said, I noticed that many of the scientists are not in attendance now and hope the effort will not be in vain. Enforcing genetic resources management on conservation and collection is very important. And then somebody, Francis Chimeze, said, this is awesome. It is, sir, this is for you. Thanks for the sense of belonging to all outstations. I think. HOU, did you get?
Yes, I got it.
So please, response.
Yeah.
Because you didn't get accession.
Good.
Doctor, sorry, oh yeah. No, I won't throw you away. Sorry, okay, ma'am.
Okay. My own question is, I want to know the benefit that a non-breeder get for bringing in seeds into the country for the first time. Seeds that haven't been in the country, you get them here, or you repatriate back into the country. What benefits? Knowing that it is only breeders that can work on that seed, to whatever you need to do, you can get new varieties or new lines or new essentials from those ones, together. And I know that that's why one of the reasons why when such comes into the country, the breeders amongst us are eager to, owning that seed from whoever it is. Because I know that there are most of us here that have linked with the International Gene Bank, where we can get in new, seeds into the country. But we're not encouraged because we know that once those things come in here, there's no process to how those things are recorded, how those things are used, how those, and so the breeders amongst us wants to, they just want to take hold of, the seeds and, and the glory. Thank you. And so everybody is guarding against that. You want to keep everything to yourself. You don't want somebody to just, to take all those things. So what are we going to do to make sure the processes are there and then people are confident to just, give you? I have so many of them now. So you need to assure me to give you those things. And then, I'm assured that those things will be used properly.
Yes, those are the.
Thank you very much for the questions. Once again, I appreciate the questions and the feedback that comes with them. Please, this time around, permit me to go from the last assigned accession number.
Non-assigned accession number.
Okay, the non-assigned accession number. The question from Dr. Oke. The benefits of a non-breeder bringing in germplasm. We must understand that germplasm, genetic resources use, is not strictly for breeders. I can say that and actually make reference to even your own work, Dr. Oke. I know that you did some work on a wide diversity of amaranths. You are not a breeder, but you were able to find out one or two things by evaluating those germplasm. I'm sure you did. As a non-breeder, we work in multidisciplinary teams along the crop improvement process. So a nutritionist can decide to ask the gene bank to provide 100 accessions of pepper that she wants to check for their capsaicin levels. An entomologist can ask for germplasm to evaluate. That's evaluation. Evaluation is different from characterization. We will get to know these things in detail when we start doing our training programs for the year. But the key thing there is when you bring in materials, even if you did not intend to use them, the registration process takes cognizance of who is bringing the collector, the donor, and that information remains on file in perpetuity. That acknowledgement is there from the Institute to you. And it is not an effort in vain. And the notion that a breeder would usurp those materials and keep them to themselves is simply not true. It may have been, engendered by one or two experiences, maybe, but it is not entirely true. Nobody can lay claim to any materials. You cannot. The genetic resources protocols we spoke about, we'll get to know this thing. Simply do not give any room for that. If you are laying claim to that, what would the farmer whose fields you collected that germplasm from do? I mean, that is why I said the only time you can lay claim to any material is when you have the PVP for that material. Plant Varietal Protection Act that was recently signed and it's law now. That is the only point where you, as an individual scientist or breeder, can say, even when you have released the variety, you cannot lay claim to it. You can lay claim to the intellectual process that went into it, but that material itself, you have to get PVP to lay claim to it. I mean, there are processes to this, and I'm sure we are going to take care of all these things as we do the training process. You also spoke about, assurances. Yes, those are the assurances. I don't know if I missed anything from your question.
Yeah, well, in the past, it hasn't been as you said. This what you're saying is seamless, but in the past we all know what has been cleanable, and we know that as a breeder you can clean up a seed. I don't know your terminology, but I know that if you have lines and all that, you can work on them, clean them up, and say this is what you have been able to breed or something.
Okay, that I think you're referring to maybe purification. Yes, that's a breeding process. It's a breeding method. Okay, it's varietal development. Development is but it is not to say that the person will lay claim to the parental population that came from.
Now, Dr. Allen, all those things you're saying, I'm not a breeder, but I'm just telling you, and I know you know that laying claim to parental, whatever, laying claim to grandchildren or grandfather or grandfather, I don't know. But I know that in the past, the most important thing is for you to have the seed as a breeder, and then you say it is your own. And a non-breeder, I mean, you're saying your terminology, I don't know. And so if I'm called to say, Dr. Okay, you said you brought this seed and this seed, that, I'll just be looking like a fool. But you using all the technology, you have all that, and then you can beat me to that. And so that's why people are holding the seeds. Yes. I'm just telling you, that assurance, we need to have it.
Now, ma'am, please, those assurances are given. The executive director, the management has given those assurances. Please, you can, sir. Yes, sir.
This sensitization is part of the assurances. That's why the process is involved now. That is another assurance you're giving is to have a constant power supply. If you know you keep something there, so I don't know what I'm trying to get. And when I was saying something, I said those people charge for responsibility of being what? You have integrity. They should have confidence. This process we're doing is confidence building process, and it's just starting. By the time you see their output, their outcome, it's going to be satisfied. So it's a process that just started. Sorry, Professor, so that I will not stand up twice. I just want to capture, to listen. The questions that come from Magauda, there are two questions, and I think I'm in a better position to answer it. Yes. What do we have for Magauda, outstations, Genebank? I was there. Please, they should correct that impression. They don't have Genebank, they have system. We only have one Genebank in Binaki, and it's here that is with me here in Ibadan. I will not stations. Because then I've been there. If you had Dr. Chikadike, he was not there when I went to Baghdad. I saw they have 2 ACs there. And the last time he came around, before the Penultimate one he came the last time, he requested for step down of the power surge they have there, which we spend on 70 or 60,000. I think this matter fixed it. And I will link it to what we discussed with the NIHORT outstation. They are all hearing me now. I think 6:30 this morning we spoke with Dr. Lofitwe, and I told him we're going to do sensitization workshop discussion. And I asked him, did any national grade 33 kVA pass through your place? He said no. He even told me, I wouldn't want to say it off record. I said, even I think the chairman of that place is staying in Mumbai, that nobody is staying there. It was okay, we don't have any national grid that we can step down close to our station. They said, no, it's okay. We always have a station, we always have a solution for that. And I asked him, I said, when I was in Dadipur, I saw your seed store. I said, no, they don't have seed store. I said, you have one. I said, no. I said, no, okay. There was a place they kept up at 250 kilogram of okra. When I went there, they said, may not be seed store is a store. I said, store is store. So that is what that was. So, in a nutshell, for that of Bagauda, if we have a reliable power supply, which I believe Bagauda has one because a national grid passed through that place. And when my year was staying in Kano, I know they have minimum of 12 to 8 hours stop. So what is wrong with their 6 store in Bagauda should be a management issue. which I believe with the competency of Dr. Chikeleke is hearing me now, he can handle that. I'm very sure. We just need to put 2 or 3 things together. Maybe their AC is not working, or the power supply that runs it. So, based on that, that of Bangalore can easily be sorted. And if it's not settled, thank you for that. And if it's not settled, I think you should put across a memo on that, and that will be taken care of. And finally, another question I think I can answer is that he didn't see many researchers here. Yes, if you listen to my opening speech, I said one is coinciding with the convocation, which I'm as an SNI, I don't know, but I've got it to know today is the right stage. And then secondly, anything you call sensitization, in most places you don't see a lot of it. It is that when we are recording this. Anybody that is interested will go back. And it's not one whole thing, it's a series which is going to come on and off and on. So I believe we can be handling this at the time is going. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Right down to
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sorry, come and take it.
Thank you very much. As a rider to what Dr. K was stressing, I think as part of your protocol, you will develop a documentation for that. That you give an official acknowledgement unit that this person does this. Give a written letter that on so day you brought this, these are the characteristics of whatever. So the person holds it that, well, I also am contributing to the development of the institute in this way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for taking your time to address those that were raised. Thank you very much, sir. Just going by Dr. K's question that has been answered now, Professor Yedele's advice and recommendation there is well noted. And we will see how we work that out. I think it's very important going by this indication. The executive director has addressed Dr. Chikaleke's concern about the attendance. Audu, yes, that too has been addressed. And Idris Bala's question too about Genebank has been addressed. Dr. Olufitwe noted that what about what we expect from researchers was not well addressed. Okay? In this particular experiment, what we expect from Dr. Adebayo in this particular trip is going on, what we expect from Dr. Oyediji in this particular experiment, those will come up as we get decentralization going. Thank you. Dr. Alamu spoke about weeds that they stay long and that they are recalcitrant. There's a mix up there about recalcitrance. Recalcitrant actually means a seed that cannot store for long. And the weeds, as we know, could be stubborn, but they are useful, as you said. And when you bring a useful plant, in genetic resources, we have the class of materials. Everything is useful. We have a class of materials we call crop wild relatives. Right now, we have a range of accessions of wild amaranths that are implemented in the gene bank. If you want them, you get them. Wild. They are useful because we know they have traits that can somehow, one day, be used in developing better amaranth varieties. So nothing is thrown away. We'll find a place for it. And they are not going to contaminate our seeds. We know how to handle them. we'll find a way. Those are part of basic research that we, the Institute, will do as we go on. Will they pass the protocol for registration? Yes, if they meet the basic criteria for registration, which are unless or whether they are wild plants or not. Dr. Oyedeji spoke about source of materials. The rootstock, okay. Oh, yes. The seeds. I know that in citrus, there's a very versatile team of scientists. Dr. Kapo is here, Dr. Yedeji, Dr. Alamu, a lot of them. And I strongly believe that the issue of seed storage is a technical matter that can be easy to solve if the right resources are deployed. As I am here, I have citrus seeds in my fridge that have been there for 7 months. Citrus rootstock seeds that have been there for 7 months. They are in my fridge at home. My wife's fridge. I beg her for one corner. They are there. I mean, so it's a technical issue. They germinate. I sow. Well, I may not argue with you, but I know you people know how best to handle that. But if at all there are any gaps in that seed storage process that are actually problems, the way you have said, the program can deploy some resources to investigating what is actually happening, and somehow you could come up with something. I really believe that you should be able to gain from your seeds when you harvest them. The other day, I'm sorry to mention this here, the other day I was taking a walk to we are hoping to use for regeneration, and I came across one of the field staff in citrus. I don't know whether a venture or a program, but I saw fruits that were rotting in a corner. That what happened? Why did they do this? Why didn't they process? He said this label, this strike is taking a toll, and I think that's a reason. For citrus, if you harvest the fruits, you process them immediately for the seeds, and you get them out. I mean, these things are things that the program can look into for the seed. The seed technology, please.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. The citrus has the recalcitrant traits in it. But if you look at citrus, not all of them. Some are highly recalcitrant. Under 15, 30 days, they are gone. Some have medium, some can be stored for a medium period, maybe 3, 4 months. But you cannot put all species together. So, for what she said now, I think we can test our gene bank. Let's try to test our gene bank and see how far we can go. Then, you have mentioned one thing, because your seed is gathering gene gathered out. If you are putting a poor quality or a low quality seed, poor or bad quality seed when you did it. Process the seed, what did you do to it? How did you handle it? How did you package it? Those are the things that we need to do now. We can look at different categories of citrus species or varieties that they have and see if we can. I did something with the Dr. for some time ago, even it was just a preliminary thing. We did outside the old farm office, you remember? So those are the things that we can look at. So we can collaborate.
Thank you. Okay. You have not been able to convince me on what you want the researchers to do. What are you expecting from them? What do you expect from them? Hello? Hello? The Genebank is put it in shape, which the ED is handling. What the researchers expect, you expect the researchers, what do you expect from them? You've not been, you have not, I don't think that I understood, it's not yet there. You don't know why Dr. K asked that question. She secured over 100 lines of app for her daily work. And I am sure that they have not all been lost. What is the procedure so that you will be proud of, okay, take this? Of recent, there were also new introductions with whatever, is it passport that you called. So just researcher A, this is what I expect from you. So that we will now know if we can then involve the projects, scientists in the projects, scientists in the programs and units, so that we get that place stopped. Use as 75 for vegetables alone. How many are sections of the variety of vegetables? Because I know that we have well over 200 varieties of vegetables. So you can see that this one is very, very, because what you have to put there is a light potentially, potentially useful genetic material, isn't it? And it's from there that you go and then take whatever thing you want to go and do your crossing. So tell us what you expect from us. If it is okay, when you travel, please bring 20 lines of this. Bring 15 lines of this. Or maybe, I'm not a trader, but at times you can see some distinct variation between one crop and the other. Like, I don't know, also, I told you one, we were discussing, and I told you that before you get to Rio, look at their own okra. It is not baby, but it's pinkish. So if I come across that kind of thing, I just be with what you give me, so that I will now say, okay, this in connection from so this, the farmer is this is this. I will just be able to feel that. When I come back, I will hand it over to you for proper documentation and we continue from there. So tell us exactly what you want from us.
Thank you very much, sir. I think I did not address that what, but I was simply assuming that maybe this forum might not really allow us to do that. But as you said, I may try. We have spoken about pre-collection planning. We've also agreed that there are out-of-schedule collections where people come across materials that they feel are useful or relevant and they collect. Now, what we would expect now is this. We have germplasm collecting forms with basic data information on them. For those of our senior colleagues that have been in the institute for longer, and even some of us that came in more recently, we know those forms. We have them. we would get them again across to people and encourage people to take them along anytime they travel, in case they come across something like that. Now, when you come across that, on the form, the collector information is there, you are the person. The site, collection site, location, characteristics of that plant, where you found them, you have that information there. You try to fill it to the detail as much as time allows you. Because for out of schedule collections, you didn't go for collection. So you possibly will not be taking time you would have used to sample your soils or sample, evaluate for disease and be taking it to go and record detailed. There are basic, so we will do that. And also, we expect that if time allows, before you set out on such a trip, you inform the Genebank, the GRE, that you're going this way. We can now actually say, look out for this, because we have some information, like you mentioned it to Dr. Abdurrafiq now, about something you see around just going, we do have that information about what to expect in certain parts. So if you reach out that, oh, I'm going this way this time of the year, we can actually plan, even though it is an out of schedule and not your core. Now, for those parties, institutional parties, programs, units, even individual scientists that have collections currently as part of their activities, what we can do now is reach out to the GRU to sit together and plan for those collections. I've had discussions with a couple of our colleagues, and in brief periods, we realized that we could sat down together to plan. So I would encourage us to, for those of us that have collection activities already planned for and budgeted, let us reach out and see how we plan for them. The materials you go with, collection containers, how to collect, what quantities to collect, those kinds of things are things we talk about. And then we will also give you an insight on what to do when you get back. Some materials, as we know, might not last long in certain states. We will have known that when you come back, this is what you can do in the interim before we come in, or that kind of thing. So planning is key, and we encourage us to sit together with us and plan for these things. I was answering Dr. Oyedeji's question about the seeds, and the other part of our question was also about out of schedule collections, right? In that same line, we will do the best we can to share information on how to go about this, as alluded to Dr. Nwa. Then you spoke about, you asked about the source of materials, how to acknowledge where they are coming from, like Dr. Oke was saying. It was, in the germplasm inventory form that we are working on now, which most of us have had, there's actually, there are columns that try to harvest this. It's not just there. It is there to insights to how we can make the best use of the materials in managing and utilizing them. Dr. Waguma asked about rootstock from Ogbomoso. Why do we always go there? I think, yes, I think on the mango orchard here, we have some Ogbomoso stands, a few. Ogbomoso. We have Ogbomoso in NIHORT. We have Ogbomoso in NIHORT. It may not be up to the quantities that one might have. So the institute can now go ahead to see how we establish rootstock fields as we desire. I spoke about the mango experiments, mango rootstock experiments we did. The Okomosho that we used for that experiment came from NIHORT. In NIHORT here, through that experiment, that project 6, we were able to identify 4 different polyembryonic stocks here, but we're only using Okomosho.
And the cherry, I think they use cherry too.
And cherry. So we have those materials here. The thing we need to do is to see how we can be strategic about establishing and using them. There's a mango behind here. It used to be very wide. I don't know the name in Yoruba. Maybe that's a cherry. Down the slope. That's cherry. It's one of the ones we actually this one by the tank here. Yes, it's a root. It's polyembryonic. It's a rootstock. You plant it, you get you know, and they are used differently. In Benue, they use it for certain kinds of soils, and they use the other one they call mango for certain kinds of soil. Deep soils, shallow soils, they use this. So these things are like that, and the institute, we only need to be strategic about how we want to use the materials. We don't need to keep traveling to a commercial where we are at the mercy of whatever we find there. We can actually, this cherry, from one tree, you can harvest 5,000 fruits from one tree, and that is being conservative. So if you have 10 trees, or let's say you have 20 trees, I mean, you have all the rootstocks you need. I mean, so it's about being strategic. And again, I hope I'm not being superfluous, but this germplasm centralization effort, by the time the institute is back on with it, most of these things would be easy cake for us.
Okay, I've done justice.
Okay.
But some embryos are, yes, Dr. Adeluwa.
Yes, thank you very much. It's not me speaking, it's my general, I think, general colleagues or whatever that. They have some things that they were speaking to my guests, which I feel will help the GRE unit and the institute afterwards.
Oh, so it's not only
So I was thinking if it's possible to create an app, and you feel like, okay, this thing I need to collect it. You don't have to, it's not pre-planned, so you can just take pictures, get all the data you need, and it goes to the data bank of GRE.
Yes. So that means we are going to be putting our IT section to task.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's even a plan by IT to even help us develop. We can testify to that.
Very good.
We can testify to that.
That's
Okay, I was actually talking about is it possible for the GRE unit to have an herbarium so that we can use it for identification? We should have an herbarium. That's what I was thinking.
Thank you.
Oh.
I mean,
There's another. Thank you. The land you work with, actually, we're talking for agriculture. Over time, will be left out. And I want to talk about the foreign seeds, because you mentioned it. Sometimes we got some seeds, they have to go through quarantine. Seeds of what? Daisies, some annuals. We went through quarantine, we got it. You know, we had to pay. But over time, because they're annuals, we lost them. So what I'm now trying to comment is how GRU, with consultation with floriculture, will bring us in when we have seeds like that. After spending a lot of dollars, how you can preserve the seeds for us. Please put us in.
Thank you very much. Quickly, I'm very happy this is coming here because floriculture program was the first program that reached out to GRU. They have commenced their inventory process and they are progress. I believe within the next 1 month, they will have turned in their results. So your comments are well taken, very innovative, especially from Itola. And I mean, Messi, this is a lot. They are well taken, and we're definitely going there. With the ED has already commenced some process, as Dr. Bidwe said, with the ICT experts. These things are going to come to life very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, please, thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate every one of us for the interaction. With the permission of my HOU, I just quickly want us to please. Okay, all right. So, okay, I think since the EDSA, with my HOU, I'm just saying that is it possible we just read through? Okay, it's pushing it back to you. So I'm in the middle.
So if I'm in charge, then let's go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, please. I know that we all have it, so that we can just go through it. I will just read it, and we read the answers that we have, and then for subsequent interactions that we'll be having, things will be getting clearer and clearer. Thank you. We have the question 1, which said, "What is genetic resources?" That has been answered in the presentation. Does GRU have mandate crop? The answer is no. GRU in NIHORT operations are not restricted to any particular subset of horticultural germplasm. The unit's mandate covers all species under NIHORT's research mandate, which may be maintained using either in situ or ex situ conservation methods, depending on their propagation and seed storage biology. What is NIHORT Genebank? NIHORT Genebank refers, he has explained that too. Is GRU NIHORT Genebank functioning? Yes. Is the GRU NIHORT Genebank well staffed to do its work? Yes, but currently the staff are overstretched. However, there are ongoing efforts by management to urgently address the situation. In the past few months, management has constantly provided ad hoc manpower to support GRU activities through casual labor. How well equipped is GRU NIHORT Genebank for its work? Management has been steadily and increasingly upgrading Genebank facilities. They have been providing equipment, power from the public grid. Efforts are also underway to provide solar-based backup power supply to further reduce downtime of cooling systems. The seed room for short-term storage for active collections that has been projected during the HOU's presentation. Which field germplasm are currently curated by GRU NIHORT Genebank? The Institute's tree crop genetic resources, as well as other vegetative propagated germplasm, are currently under complete custody of the respective mandate research programs, units, projects, and individual scientists. The former Project 6 conducted inventories of citrus and mango, but the data needs to be validated for empirical documentation of the current status of field collections. We expect this gap to be filled with the ongoing genetic resources inventory and subsequent field mapping. Thus, giving the GRU NIHORT Genebank passport data and other detailed information on the germplasm that I work with pose any threats to my further use of the data or the materials? That may be one other question. The answer is no. The ongoing germplasm inventory, as well as subsequent registration process, is confidential. Information is only used by GRU NIHORT Genebank according to established standards and guidelines. You can save your seeds with Genebank and under global standard protocol. You can either save them as open box. Open box means that the Genebank can have access to it, they can regenerate it, they can share it with any stakeholder that needs it. The black box means that don't touch, don't share. I just keep it with you. If it is 10 years' time, you come and pick it up. If they are dead, you would have signed that whatever, you will sign an indemnity on it. So it can be a black box or open box. Number 9, can genetic materials be registered and assigned official NIHORT Genebank accession codes without physically submitting them or granting access to them? This is no. For any material to be registered in NIHORT Genebank and assigned an official accession code, it must meet the basic criteria for quantity, quality, passport data, and other relevant information. The passport data is what the HOU mentioned about collecting sites, the geographical sites, and all the what have you. Thus, the material needs to have been physically submitted along with the required information. In the case of seed germplasm, or GRU, NIHORT Genebank is granted access to the live materials of the field on the location alongside required information in case of the field germplasm. Submitting germplasm or granting access to live materials applies even if the submitting party, that is the program, the unit, the station or project or scientist, indicates that the material is exclusive and must not be shared or used without their permission. So during the time of bringing it, all this information will have to be documented. It is important to note that the registration process takes full cognizance of the germplasm donor and maintain this information on file. There's a caveat to this. If we are working in a project that is sponsored by the institute itself, and we go on collection, you cannot save it as a black box. It is open because the institute have paid for your offer. You have been paid. You have your reward, and the reward of the institute is the germplasm. So you submit those materials to the Genebank based on the activity of that project. If you have done it on a personal, maybe one-on-one, because this is repay or PR, then you can either say a black box or you are donating it, and all the documents will be properly saved. And Dr. Oyedele has given us another heads up about giving official letter. That will be taken care of. Another question that may come to mind is, am I expected to submit every quantity of germplasm material in my custody? No. Germplasm donors or submitting parties are encouraged to retain for themselves sustainable quantities for material they wish to submit to NIHORT Genebank. 10. What if a scientist or breeder is not yet ready or willing to submit seeds or grant access to field or the live propagators of their breeding materials to GRU or NIHORT Genebank for registration? The answer: programs, unit stations, projects, and individuals are at liberty to adopt and assign working ID codes, formats for their germplasm as they find convenient. However, they must avoid using NH or NIHORT prefixes in such IDs or codes in order to avoid conflicting identity codes. Official NIHORT Genebank accession codes will only be assigned when the materials are submitted or access to live material is granted for registration into the system. Another question here: how will programs, units, and scientists access financial and other benefits of decentralized genetic resources? So sharing of benefits arising from utilization of plant genetic resources is according to the relevant global protocols, specifically ITP-GRFA, which the President recently assented to. In the case of token fees charged to recipients of germplasm conserved, held under the centralized system, the revenue comes to the institute and is deployed to offset costs related to germplasm regeneration, maintenance, processing, and phytosanitary procedures. The cost of shipping are generally borne by the recipients. Just to explain further on this, this is bordering on access to benefits and sharing of germplasm, which is under the FAO ITP-GRA controlled treaty that Nigeria has also signed into. It means that when we go on our collection, if you are traveling maybe for a seminar or a conference or a workshop, and you do unassigned, unplanned collection, and you bring the materials to NIHORT, we will detail your information that you have done it. But for financial benefit, like you have been paid by the institute to go for that, and you have also done justice. You have done justice by helping the institute increase the genetic base. So financially, what financial benefit comes to the NIHORT as an institute in the case that these materials are used to develop new materials, not in its raw form that you have submitted that. If you have submitted it in raw form, there is no financial benefit because it is just there, nobody knows the benefit of that material. But if I go ahead now and maybe Dr. Oke as an entomologist, take the different lines and begin to put tutor into them and find out that 2 or 3 of them are actually very good. That information she will just give to Genebank. These 2 lines, I found them to be resistant. We will put them in our database. We don't need the raw data from her. She just needs to give that empirical information that with regards to my field of study, I've screened thousands of your materials and I found these 2. So that if any other stakeholder go to our website and need tutor resistance from our information, we can actually pull that one out. So if somebody now take it out and use it in cross combination to develop new material, that is where the PVP Act comes in, the plant variety protection, until you develop a new line from it. So you develop a new line from it and you apply for protection first before releasing it. Because once you release it, you may not have control over it, because if it is a highly sourced material that people are looking for, it goes out there and you cannot control it again. But first of all, you release, there is a case that was shared. An American goes to Mexico, and there is this particular genetic resource of fruits. I don't know the fruit again. It's from Mexico. It originates from Mexico. They sell it, they bring it to the US and sell the fruits. And it's very, it's a premium fruit. So this American breeder went to Mexico, brought the seeds to the US, planted it, grew it up, and harvested the fruit and protected the seeds. Now, American farmers have to be paying license, royalty to the breeder in the US for what originally belonged to them. And that is what we did with our oil palm that we did for Malaysia. So with the plant variety protection now, we cannot repatriate that. But in the case of that Mexico, they were able, when they brought it to the global system, after back and forth, they repealed the protection they gave the US-based man and gave the right back to the farmers in the Mexico. Because they had a central voice, they were able to trace it back. So also, this also got ITISA, they claim the noise that we are asking for our seed, tech, GRU, and biotech to be together. Because all these, we will be able to fingerprint our materials wherever they are. If anybody is laying claim to them, we just do we will do paternity tests for the line. Once we do paternity tests and we know what we have in our DNA bank, you know, we have different banks now, gene bank, in vitro bank, DNA bank, then we can always tell them that this actually is from us. Look at our bank in the 1980s and look at what we are having now with this paternity test. So we can always have that information. So what if it is not protected ahead of being released, we will not be able to have access to the benefit that accrue from it. But if you protect it, then you release it. There is a law now. For other crops, it's 25 years after 20 you reapply. But all those processes will go through it. The other question, are scientists in the institute required to pay any fees to access or use germplasm from GRA Biotech? No. All seed germplasm held under the centralized framework, including those not submitted by the requesting parties, are available on official request to all scientists under approved internal distribution procedures and quantities. Requesters may, however, be charged for live germplasm or even seeds, depending on certain factors such as source, availability, or quantity requested for. How should external requests for germplasm received in the institute be processed? Programs, unit stations, projects, and individuals can receive requests for all germplasm types, in vitro, live plants, propagate, seedlings, on behalf of the institute, and even facilitate the processing of requests on behalf of requesters, who are usually external scientists, research partners, breeders, students, farmers, or other important. However, such requests are to be routed to GRU NIHORT Genebank to be processed officially and documented to enable the institute keep track of its genetic resources distribution and seed outreach impact. The institute is also able to deploy higher efficiency in seed planning to meet stakeholder demands. Note that materials designed as commercial and in such large quantities may be accessed through horticulture or venture. What we are trying to bring home here is that when you want to go on that request, that scientist, that person, your friend outside or wherever that you want to bring that material from, please contact the GRU. Let's do the process together. Let's get the import permits, the phytosanitary. Let's have that documentation. If it comes from Genebank to Genebank, we know they are not free. We will pay for it, but there will be a process whereby the unit also can add that information. Once they come, we can, if we will look at the quantity and whatever, then we will take it up from there. How should materials released or registered by the National Crops Varieties Committee be handled? Quantities of materials released or registered by NIHORT scientists can also be registered in the NIHORT Genebank for conservation and assigned official NH codes. For germplasm that have not been used at all, they have the normal convention for naming them. For released varieties, the unit also have convention for naming our released varieties, which we know they are different from the ones that we have not used. If we have been released, certain percentage of seed must be with GRU because it is released today. It becomes a germplasm because it becomes another base for another person to start work with. So, like that is how the genetic resource is a cyclic operation. Now today it is an improved variety. Tomorrow it will become unimproved. It may succumb to any problem by tomorrow. So we have to. I think I have done justice to this.
Thank you, both the actor and HOU. Yes. See, we've done the theory and the academic exercise. And it's purposely directed, it's directly to the HOU. What we need to do now is to now take it down to real practical reality, which is because the moment we leave this place, we don't see anything. That's not fact, except 1%, 2%, 3%. So what we do is we come up with an action plan, how you follow up with the programs and individual statistics to get all these things if you're really serious about it. Otherwise, it's going to be official and it's going to be academic exercise. And it's going to end when you just said it. How melody or the topics to our head is going to end. So what you need to do to get it practical and get a lot of things, those empty containers you put your sister and you came back. Because I was very inquisitive. I saw it well dressed and I was shaking it one after the other. Sick at time. So to get things done, you have to go after each programs, their program text, their unit text, and talk to them one-on-one. If they're in place, you have your contact person, your focal person, so that you can retrieve all these things. That impact, there's nothing inside. If you don't know, that's the bottom line where I start you to get this thing done. And if you want to get that impact, you see that you want to get it done, you have to do all these things. You know the scientists that have the material. Luckily, Dr. Pierre does so well. So you have to follow her, get it done. And lastly, you have for inputs, if that's your template you have, and all those processes you said. Dr. Wagner just said a lot of things. Luckily, Dr. Professor Ejili, Dr. Ejili was able to tell you then that was hammering on certain things. So you just follow up with, and then the youngsters, they are bringing the new digital idea. So you also have to understand, put it together. What you want that is policy for our party, get it done. You want that is your own to be done. Do it. You want that have the resources, we're all going to share it.
Thank you very much, indeed. Thank you very much. I think the NIHORT chairman wants to say something.
Thank you. I have a comment in was it number 6 or something like that, where he said it's casual labor. No casualization of labor in Nigeria. Otherwise, labor will go you. We use mandates. It's very accurate, but we don't know where this one will get. Then the characterization of what they call it constituents. You know, I thought that probably we have more varieties of oranges or citrus than here. But there are lots. For example, do you have pineapple here? I don't know. Citrus. You have pineapple. Where's it? You have pineapple. You have hamlet. Hamlet. You have king. King, not man. So there are not they said there's going to be meditation. This is very, very necessary.
Okay, thank you very much. Over to Dr. Okafor.
Ladies and gentlemen, as of now, we have spent 2 hours, 43 minutes, and 30 seconds. And what that means is that the time well spent, everything that has a beginning must have an end. And the time comes when you just have to tell yourself, enough. If you are given the opportunity to be God, what will you do? The ET gave Alan the opportunity to be executive director when he did something. So when we started, we said, why do we conserve? We conserve because we conserve things that need to be conserved. If there is no need to conserve, then you don't conserve. And in Venezuela, they said that there are no bad soils. What you have is only bad soil users. Meaning that in nature, everything is beautiful. It's just for us to identify what we need it for. So it is time to hit the ground running. Enough of talking, it is time for action. Because one thing we are very good in Nigeria is too much talk, little action. So let's talk less and do what we need to do. So in characterization, after characterization, we classify. After classifying, we evaluate. And then we now think of what needs to be conserved. On that note, I want to say thank you to every one of us for the time, the patience that we have exhibited here this afternoon. I was going to call on Mr. Ogutori to do the vote of thanks. I think it's something you can quickly do. In a few minutes, then we can go. The next step, as we have on the program, has been handled by the executive director.
On behalf of all of us, we want to say thank you for your patience. Your comments, your contributions are well appreciated. To NIHORT family members and friends that are watching us online, we want to say thank you also for your patience. And to your data, we want to send more money to your pops. The Chief Executive Officer and his team, thank you for your support. Thank you very much for your patience, and thank you very, very much for backholding this program. More money to NIHORT and more grace to all of us.
I want to ask you a question. You have told us what to do in case we do. Is it emergency collection you call it? Out of schedule. Well, what you don't know, you don't know. And thank you for teaching us. Today I've learned about black box receipt management. I used to hear about it somewhere. Is it possible that when we give you such, give us that covering letter, can we also tender it as part of our promotion guidance? Okay, so we will look into, one of the things we have been taught with these new promotion guidelines that everything counts. Don't take anything for granted. So please just go and collect the seeds. If you can wake up your grandmother to tell you where she gets from, just wake her up and bring the seeds here so that we can use them to enrich our jam class in bank. So once more, we thank all of you for the time given. We pray that the institute continues to move forward. As I call on us now, after congratulating Dr. Amusu once more for that feat. You know, sometimes when people come and say some things about PhD, you scientists, this, I normally don't engage in such naughty discussions because I think it's waste of time. All I tell you when you come up to tell me, scientists, this, and I say, just go and do a PhD. When you finish, come and let's discuss. And that is the only answer I give you. Go and run that PhD. When you finish, come and then we can discuss. Because by the time you go through, your thinking will change. And then some of those statements will stop. And then you know that, you know what it takes to get one. So, my friend, congratulations once more. I will look forward to more of that. Okay, so on that note, I want to ask us to please rise for the second stanza of the national anthem as we bring this program to a close. The lines you don't know, just be quiet. Okay, now we go. To God of creation, direct our locus, guide our leaders right, help our use the truth to know. In love and honesty to grow and live in just and true. Great lofty heights attain to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign. So thank you. Have a wonderful day. Now we can enjoy the rice.
Dr. Amusu.